Well, if he had wanted all of these young people who I know are there today to be taking part.
Yeah, he would really have wanted that, and he said he wanted that, which is why so many of them are here today as part of this service. The participants in the Duke of Edinburgh's award are a key part of the event today. Some of them are lining up in various areas of the Abbey, others are guests. We're going to hear an address from one of the Gold Duke of Edinburgh's award winners. So it is a key part of his legacy, and that is why it is a key part of this service. He had a keen eye on empowering young people. He thought giving them opportunities, seeing them challenged, would give them confidence in other parts of their life. And he wanted them to be part of this service today.
I'm just pausing, Daniela, if you're still with us. What are we expecting to happen now? Just take us through what we are seeing at the moment and when we can expect perhaps to see the Queen.
Yeah, we would hope, I think, to see the Queen shortly. She is likely to take her seat away from the cameras. So what we're seeing now is some of the pomp and the ceremony as part of this Thanksgiving service. But we would hope to see the Queen in her seat shortly. But this is the beginning of the service. It is a religious service, a Church of England service here in Westminster Abbey.
In Westminster Abbey, where he made promises that defined a life of willing duty and spirited service. We give thanks for His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. A man of rare ability and distinction, rightly honoured and celebrated, he ever directed our attention away from himself. He put privilege to work and understood his rank as a spur to service. Working at pace, with so many claims on his attention, he encouraged us to focus, as he was focused, on the things that matter. His was a discipline and character that seized opportunity and overcame obstruction and difficulty. We recall with affection and respect the sustained offering of a long life lived fully. Acknowledging our loss, we turn to the God who is our help, for he will renew our hope. In grateful remembrance of the Prince Philip, we then commit ourselves to live as he lived, in faith, in the service of Her Majesty, and with a greater reverence for our world and our neighbours.
This is the very Reverend Dr. David Hoyle, the Dean of Westminster, saying the bidding there in Westminster Abbey. And you can see all the senior members of the royal family there, including the Queen, the first public appearance of the Queen in 5 months at the Duke of Edinburgh Memorial Service, a service of thanksgiving, which we will return to over the next hour or so. But also amongst those gathered inside the Abbey today, you may have just caught glimpses of the members of government who were there. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson and his senior cabinet ministers are there too. And very much the political story here in the UK, alongside, of course, all the focus on Ukraine and the war in Ukraine, is the news that police say they will issue the first of 20 fines in relation to government parties that took place during COVID-19 lockdowns, and more could follow. What is not known yet, though, is if Boris Johnson will be among those fined. So let's take you over to our political offices in Westminster and join Rob Watson, who is there watching the story very closely. Do we know any more, Rob, about these 20 fines?
We don't, in the sense that we don't know exactly what they're for or who they were sent to. What we do know is that this is the initial batch, because the Metropolitan Police have said, Lucy, that they've got so much material that they're wading through it as fast as they can. But in other words, stand by for more fines, more notices, and possibly issued to people that are extremely well known, the Prime Minister, for example.
Take us back a few months, Rob, because it already feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? But why are these politicians going to potentially be issued with these fines? What did they do?
So, put simply, there were long periods of time where the UK, like a lot of other countries around the world, were under very strict lockdowns. You couldn't meet people, you couldn't gather in groups of more than 2, you couldn't see people outside your household. It then emerged that there were all sorts of parties going on in various government buildings, including Downing Street, including drinks in the party, including, I think, one particular occasion where it's alleged that they even ran out of drinks and had to go and get out some more and have some loud music. So the fundamental problem that the Prime Minister and his team were facing are one of just monumental hypocrisy, that it was one rule for the rest of us and one rule for those setting the rules.
The focus is now on Ukraine, as I mentioned, Rob, but how damaging was all of this for the Prime Minister and his government?
Oh, I think it is damaging, but I mean, to take it in the order that people want, the conventional wisdom at Westminster, and I think it's correct, Lucy, is that what's happened in Ukraine is so massive that it completely overtakes the Partygate crisis, so there's no immediate threat to Boris Johnson's position as Prime Minister and leader of the Conservative Party. But I think it's important to say that is not the end of the story for Downing Street, because one has a sense that the sort of the initial shock over Ukraine is wearing off a bit, but also you get this sort of sense that Partygate has sort of shaken the view that many Conservative MPs had of the Prime Minister, tarnished his reputation permanently. And I think the other thing that's going to be really worrying to Downing Street is that there is a souring mood among the governing Conservative Party about the sort of sense that Britain is drifting economically, that the cost of living is going up, and a sort of sense that Boris Johnson and his government don't really have any of the answers to those problems, or not answers to their satisfaction in any case, Lucy.
So a souring mood amongst the Conservative Party. What about with the voting public, Rob?
So the voting public, since we last spoke, I wanted to check out the latest opinion polling, and it suggests that a majority would still like the Prime Minister to resign if he's found to have broken his own laws. And Interestingly, I was listening to a phone-in on one of our domestic radio stations, and it was extraordinary the extent to which people were really, really angry. I mean, the people who care about this stuff are very angry people who couldn't say goodbye to loved ones. But interestingly, you heard the other side of the story, which were people calling in to say, come on, we've got the crisis in Ukraine, let's get things in proportion.
Yeah, there is the crisis in Ukraine. Everyone very preoccupied by that, Rob. But also there are soaring infection rates when it comes to COVID. So it is still very much on people's mind. Rob Robertson, thank you very much for joining us. The actor Will Smith has issued a full apology to the comedian Chris Rock for slapping him during the Oscars ceremony. The onstage violence, prompted by a joke about the star's wife, was seen live by millions around the world. David Willis reports.
To do what we do, you got to be able to take abuse. You got to be able to have people talk crazy about you.
Will Smith issued a tearful apology both to the Academy and his fellow nominees on Sunday night, but of one man there was no mention.
Jada, I love you. G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it, all right?
Chris Rock's joke about Smith's wife's hair loss led to her husband storming the stage, and this slap across the face.
Oh, wow!
And as a stunned, star-studded audience looked on, the actor proceeded to hurl profanity-laden abuse from his seat.
Keep my wife's name out your mouth!
I'm going to.
Nearly 24 hours after the Academy Awards got underway here came a direct apology to Chris Rock. Posting on Instagram, Will Smith said he was wrong and out of line. Violence in all of its forms is poisonous and destructive, he wrote. My behaviour at last night's Academy Awards was unacceptable and inexcusable.
Now at this point I can only laugh. And y'all know I've been struggling with alopecia.
Smith also mentioned his wife's highly public battle with hair loss, saying a joke about her medical condition was too much for him to bear. His behaviour on what should have been one of the best nights of his life has been condemned by the Academy, and an inquiry is underway which could lead to him being censured or expelled. After dancing the night away, he'll have awoken to the collective sense of shock and disbelief here over what happened on Sunday night. The slap that was seen around the world is unlikely to cost him his Oscar, but there's a growing feeling that such a highly public act of violence cannot go unpunished. David Willis, BBC News, Los Angeles.
It has been hugely controversial, of course, what happened on the stage at the Oscars. It's divided opinions the world over. Jada Pinkett Smith, of course, suffering from a hair loss condition because of alopecia, and that also has made headlines around the world too, as people seek to understand about the condition and some of the difficulties that women particularly are facing when they have alopecia. One of the things that has been particularly stark has been the debate about which of the men went too far. Jane McCubbin has this report.
Uh-oh.
This was the moment the world collectively gasped.
Oh, wow!
But just who crossed the line here? Chris Rock or Will Smith?
When you look at your partner and your partner's clearly upset by what somebody else has said, live on stage in front of the world, I think that's unfair. And I think he's justified definitely to stand up for his partner.
I don't know.
Well, I think he did.
Just like Jada Pinkett Smith, Shannon and her 5-year-old son Tommy both live with alopecia. And last night, here in Bolton, Chris Rock's G.I. Jane gag about hair loss fell flat.
G.I. Jane 2, can't wait to see it, all right?
You are losing a part of you. It's not only comments that you get, it's people taking a second look or taking a bit of a longer stare.
Now at this point I can only laugh. And y'all know I've been struggling with alopecia.
It has more of an effect on you than what people think, because it's all the time. It's constant.
Look at this line right here. And so it just showed up like that. Now this is going to be a little bit more difficult for me to hide.
I don't think people should be allowed to get away with that.
It is assault though, isn't it? It is assault, but you think there was a line that was crossed?
Yeah, I do, yeah. The damage that Will caused to Chris, it made him a bit embarrassed. Well, how long is you know, Will's wife going to be embarrassed by the whole scenario?
Even America is torn.
It is one of the most shocking moments in Oscars history.
First, people in the audience and at home wondered if it was even real.
People are still in shock and divided because it felt unbelievable.
It took away from what the show was.
Should he be kicked out of the Academy?
He should have been punished in the moment.
That kind of thing doesn't happen at the Oscars.
It's the kind of exposure groups like Alopecia UK can only dream of. But it still felt wrong.
When I woke up this morning and saw the news, the main thing that was on my mind wasn't two men having a minor altercation on the stage. It was about a lady who was sitting in the audience who had become the centre of some media storm, who'd shown up at an event looking amazing, who happens to have alopecia and is willing to talk about how distressing that is. I think she is pretty amazing, and yeah, full power to her.
You understand the emotion of this.
Yes.
You just wish it had been done differently.
Yeah, that's right.
As the stage lights went up in Manchester's Frog and Bucket Comedy Club,
This song is for all of my lovers.
The Academy announced it had launched a formal review of the incident.
Who crossed the line here, Chris or Will?
Will, 100%. I think the joke wasn't that good, but I don't think it's excusable to go up and hit someone because of a joke, so I think Will Smith crossed the line a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, he got to sit back down and just enjoy the rest of the show. He won the Oscar at the end still, and got to give a speech, and yeah, it's just a bit bizarre because he'd assaulted the host earlier in the night.
2 claps there, thank you.
Will Smith couldn't have looked less repentant as he danced after the ceremony, but after the party ended, the full apology finally arrived. I was out of line, I was wrong. Awards like comedy clubs are no stranger to jokes that cross a line.
I just hope people don't go to regular comedy clubs and think it's okay to go on stage and fight a comedian because they didn't like a joke that they made.
But few awards have ever seen anything quite like this. Jane McCubbin, BBC News.
Let's take a closer look now at the refugee crisis caused by the war in Ukraine, the biggest refugee crisis in Europe since the Second World War. Each of the almost 4 million refugees who have left the country has their own story, of course. The threads of their past lives, their escape routes, their current places of shelter, all interwoven. Our correspondent Nick Thorpe sent us this report from northeast Romania about Irina, her family and the monastery which has taken them in.
Ihastria. The name of the monastery means a place of retreat, of prayer and meditation, away from the turmoil of the world. And that's what it means now for Irina, her mother-in-law Natalia, her best friend Ira, and their 5 children. Irina drove them all here in her old Ford Transit from Kharkiv in eastern Ukraine.
My lovely car, my lovely van. I'm so glad that here I have a part of home, a part of my husband. Sometimes I want to sit there just to smell my husband, just to smell my house.
Her husband, like Ira's husband, stayed behind in Kharkiv, a city under Russian siege, delivering fuel. Here at the monastery, the families have been given a house and told they can stay as long as they wish.
Last Sunday, when I was praying at the church, I even prayed for Putin. I wished him to become wiser. I wished him stop killing our children in Ukraine. Only here at the monastery, I began to feel some sympathy to Russian troops. And I stopped hating them. Only yesterday I saw some flowers in the yard. And I was so surprised because I didn't see them before. It's impossible even to breathe this beautiful mountain air.
When they fled Ukraine, they thought they might be home for Easter. Now their best hope is by summer. Nick Thorpe, BBC News, Sihastria Monastery, Romania.
We are going to return you now to Westminster Abbey.
There's no discouragement shall make him once relent his first avowed intent to be a pilgrim. These are John Bunyan's words from our opening hymn. They remind us very much of the courage, integrity, steadfastness, and sense of purpose that were part of the intriguing and attractive mix that went to make up the personality of Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh. But in what was it all rooted? In 1947, Prince Philip was made a Knight of the Order of the Garter. On the back of his stall in St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, is fixed in perpetuity and for everyone to see a small enamelled brass plate on which is inscribed his motto. It is simply, "God is my help." We do not understand the man unless we see him at the heart to be a man of faith. That faith was never dogmatic, sentimental, or paraded, and as it went in search of understanding, was frequently questioned and examined. However, it was real, and it endured, inspiring and shaping a lifetime of commitment to the making of this world a better place. I'm not sure that Prince Philip had much time for the theological controversies that divide people, his faith was a heartfelt trust in a loving God whose intention for this world is glimpsed in the life and teaching of Jesus Christ. Such trust, such hope as could unite people in a common endeavour. This trust, this hope, was not idle, wishful thinking or escapism. Rather, it evoked in him a kind of impatience, eagerness for that God-intended future upon which his gaze was always fixed. He knew, however, that that future, from any human point of view, had to be arrived at step by step. He was practical, wanting to put flesh upon his dreams.
You are watching live pictures from Westminster Abbey and the Duke of Edinburgh's memorial service, a service of thanksgiving. Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh, was by his wife's side for more than 7 decades, and he passed away at Windsor Castle at home in April, 2 months shy of his 100th birthday. We have seen the Queen here for the first public appearance she's made in 5 months. You're watching BBC World News.
Included the equipping of young people to face tomorrow's.
Hello there. The next bout of severe storms is going to be developing over the next 24 hours or so through central parts of North America. Low pressure at the moment that's been bringing some snow flurries across the Rockies. You can see on the satellite image this clump of cloud here. Now, as that pushes out of the Rockies towards the plains, we're going to be seeing some severe storms, particularly Wednesday and into Thursday. But ahead of it, still some brisk southerly winds, gusty winds, bringing an enhanced risk of fires across parts of Texas, New Mexico, for instance, as well. It's been pretty chilly further east, but turning a little bit milder for the likes of Montreal and New York through the day on Tuesday. So temperatures up to about 6 degrees for New York. Heading further south into Mexico, lots of sunshine for central areas and towards the north of the Yucatan Peninsula, but still some heavy showers lingering for Belize, Nicaragua, Honduras, and this cold front, which is also bringing some downpours, particularly for Hispaniola. For South America, heavy rain across northern parts of Brazil, stretching towards Peru and Ecuador as well. To the south of that, we've got a cold front which is going to be pushing northwards, bringing some really heavy downpours to Uruguay, into southern Brazil and Paraguay.